So a couple of reasons why we study genre is because we live in a highly digital and diverse like age in terms of like the sheer number of kinds of text and communication that come at us all the time and all the different layers that exist. And it really pushes thinking more about just like the product. Like if someone hands you the rules, you're just thinking about the product and how to fulfill those rules. But you don't have to make any choices yourself, and the more choices you have to make about yourself, the more you recognize other people's choices when you read them. When you're on the internet or watching the news and you're reading these other texts, the better you get at making choices, the better you can read other people's choices, and vice versa. And it kind of pushes that like the rhetorical knowledge and that critical reading. So if you think about it, like, when you choose how to organize your ideas, that's a rhetorical choice. When you choose how to address your audience, or you choose your wording, or how to transition, or the kind of research you want to use, those are all rhetorical choices, and it's important to learn how to make those choices on your own. So it kind of also pushes that like link between like the process and the product, like the steps to getting there. And it kind of hits home that good writing isn't always the same, that context, the purpose, the audience, the genre, it all impacts whether that piece is going to be successful or not. And it does push that critical reading and literacy, to be able to pay attention to like and notice what is going on underneath the text and behind what choices was the writer making in this piece. And it kind of just shows how like audience expectations and rules like do kind of like impact what is kind of helping to create what's going on in that text. So I want us to think about, when we're analyzing genres or writing in new genres, thinking about questions to ask yourself. First, you might consider like thinking like, how can I tell this is genre? For instance, how can I tell that this is a country song? How can I tell this is, and so certain features are going to jump out at you as soon as I say that. What features are going, or how can I tell if this is a poem? How can I tell if this is a horror movie? As soon as you say, how can I tell this is a ransom note? How can I tell this is an annotated bibliography? How can I tell that this is, a lecture? Because those features are going to stand out to you. And if you look at like several examples of something, you'll see patterns. Like you would know if you were reading a blog, because you've read a lot of blogs or read several blogs, you've seen them. You know how they sound. You know what sort of patterns to look for. So you're thinking about like that genre's purpose and its conventions. We talked about the newspaper, its purpose to get news out to a mass amount of people, and the rules it has to follow, the conventions, the format, how it's ordered, how its information is laid out. We did that with the ransom note. We talked about the purpose, and then we talked about the rules that you're supposed to follow. So that's what you want to ask yourself with every genre. What is its purpose? Why do we use it? Because that's our purpose, what rules do I have to follow? So what is the social need behind it? What am I using this to accomplish? And then what are the patterns, features, rules that I'm supposed to use to recognize, for my audience to recognize the genre that I'm using and to fulfill those goals? So this is definitely something to write down. This is going to come back to you a bunch. We're just kind of introing like genre and modes, but it's something we're going to talk about more even as we move into the annotated bibliography, and it's something that's really going to come back to you in the digital essay. So we're going to build on this concept all semester. So here are the 5 characteristics of a text that genre will impact. First is content. What does it include? What ideas, and content really goes back to purpose. If you think about like news is about reporting events, so that tells you what kind of content is going to be there. Annotated bibliographies, list and present sources. So that's going to tell you like text. That's going to tell you what is included in it. We talked about ransom notes, what its purpose is. Therefore, what are you supposed to talk about in that ransom note? What are you not supposed to talk about in that ransom note? Organization. And organization and format are different, because organization is more how the ideas are ordered. For instance, if you can like get in the Wayback Machine to the 5-paragraph essay, they'll tell you like the topic sentence goes here, and then your piece of information, and then your concluding sentence, and then you go into the next paragraph. That's the order. Format is more about how it looks. So for those like formal papers, it might be like, what are your margins supposed to be? What kind of font are you supposed to use? What's your title look like the actual like format. But it can also be things like white spaces, images, color schemes, all of that stuff. Language. Oh, sorry, let me go back to organization because I kind of skipped that just a little bit because I was kind of differentiating between organization and format. Sometimes you can also do a lot with organization because the way we order things will tell you like what's the most important, and you can kind of read a lot into that and take a lot from it. For instance, if you think about like news writing, the most important thing in the news that we think is, especially in that story, is the headline and like the main thing that happened. The details are secondary, they come at the bottom. Nutrition labels are one of my favorite things to talk about because, you know, we read, you know, top to bottom, left to right. So whatever is, you know, at the top is going to be the most important. So culturally, like what we think, and then the biggest font, that's what they're going to draw attention to. So we think calories are the most important, and the serving size and the fat content. Those are the things that are at the top. And then possibly like after that, like carbs and sodium and that kind of stuff. And then at the, like usually vitamins, unless it's a cereal or something that they're trying to convince you is more nutritious than it is, then those vitamins are going to be a little more showcased. Typically the vitamins are at the bottom, like in like smaller font, and the ingredients are like way at the bottom in little tiny font because either they assume that we don't know what the ingredients are, or that we're not going to read it, or they don't want us to notice it because there's so many things that we can't pronounce. And if you were paying a lot of attention to it, you'd be like, why is this in my food? And it's ordered that way for a certain reason. For language, it has to do more like with what kind of tone it is. You can start like surface level with what the level of formality is. Is it formal, informal? Is it casual, conversational? Language can also mean like, is it supposed to be really descriptive or detailed? Should there be lots of like really descriptive, flowery language? Are you allowed to use I? Can you tell stories? Is it supposed to be really objective? So it kind of helps you with that a little bit. Sentences can be, I don't know if you know this, but like, you know, we kind of lump grammar into like sentence structure and things, and that can differ. Like in some kinds of writing, the rhythm is really important, like whether or not it flows. And in that case where that's more important, sentence fragments are perfectly okay if it is purposeful. If that sentence fragment is there because it like represents the way you would normally be speaking, it's perfectly okay. So it's not always true that you can't use a sentence fragment. It depends on the kind of writing that you're doing. Some, you know, some genres prefer like the long winding sentences and they want you to switch it up, and some don't. They want like short direct sentences, that kind of thing. So genre can tell you like even down to like the sentence structure, what you're going to be